give you my 2 cents on a couple of issues, which is, we just went through that whole pandemic thing, not too long ago. And for whatever you think, I know there's plenty of people that have loved ones that were lost to the sickness. And, for the vast majority of them, it was completely preventable because, as it turns out, those medications that were being demonized in the media, we do have the peer-reviewed studies now, and guess what? It was like, in some of them, a 50% reduction in mortality and a 70% reduction in mortality in others just by early treatment, and not using things like the one that's it's remdesivir is a killer drug. It causes kidney failure and a bunch of other stuff. And that was the standard of treatment, along with ventilators, instead of just putting a mask on these people's faces, because they said that would be a potential disease spreader. So we've got to intubate them and put them on a respirator instead. And the amount of people that died, the mortality rates are incredibly high from doing such things as that. It's a risky prospect when they could have just put some oxygen mask on them. I'm not a doctor, but I know doctors, quite a few of them. I know respiratory therapists that literally went through this and had to quit the profession that they love because they were advocating for their parents, or patients rather. I know others that were advocating for their parents that lost their parents, that literally couldn't get the hospitals to give them a freaking vitamin D, okay? Because that's not the standard of care. So the idea of what all of this is, yeah, it's a real thing, and some people had some bad outcomes, but really what exacerbated the problems is this is a complete design by the rulers to, as a method to be able to instill social controls that otherwise they would not be able to. And they actually outline this in the Rockefeller official Rockefeller Scenarios for the Future document back from like 2012, using a pandemic. Even the movie V for Vendetta outlined stuff like this, that basically using a pandemic, you can put in a whole bunch of social controls using the best intentions of the people, because we want to do the right thing and protect others and stuff. But guess what? It's all, for the most part, it's all bullshit. Okay, it is a pre-planned deal. Like 6 weeks before the first case, they wargamed all of this out. You can look it up. It's called Event 201. The CIA was there, John Hopkins, Bill Gates, people, everybody, and they were mapping out how to control the information and not how to save people and the best treatments possible, but how to control the information flow and all of these other social construct type of deals. And yeah, it's collusion, and it seems to be like the consensus, because the same people, you're like, oh, how does one thing control all of these different entities? The media's not talking about it, or the media's saying the same thing as the politician, as the pharmaceutical people, and all these different news organizations are saying the same thing. Well, guess what? They're all owned by the same people. Look it up. It's not even a conspiracy. You don't have to take my word for it. There's a couple companies, one of which is BlackRock, another is Vanguard, that literally own nearly everything in the world, or controlling stakes. That's why you see these crazy moves in unison by these various companies that are like committing fiscal suicide by alienating their like the North Face, putting out transgender stuff, or Bud Light, or you name it, Target or whatever, putting out like all sorts of weird stuff, like little kid shirts that say Satan respects your pronouns. Did they not, kind of see maybe a backlash of tuck-friendly swimsuits encouraging that sort of thing? You can live however you want, and I'm totally cool with it. I have had plenty of friends from all walks of life. I don't judge anybody, but it's a fact that the society is pushing things on children that are just not appropriate, okay? they can make their own stuff, but this incredible uptick, and then also trying to normalize basically pedophilia. Changing a pedophile to a minor attracted person, and squelching. I mean, there's some nefarious things about. Okay, so the the thrust of this talk is not just to freak you out or whatever, but they're going to do the stuff again. That's the thing, is we lost like 30 or 40% of our small businesses over the last shutdown, not the pandemic, but the pandemic response. Okay. We had more fentanyl overdoses and more social ills, suicides, and if you haven't noticed, the medication that they had pushed on everybody, and a ton of them were took it. They didn't want it. They were coerced. They couldn't even maintain their job. We kicked out military people, are the heroes of the pandemic, or the nurses and doctors that wouldn't take it. A ton of them lost their jobs. It's called coercion. Okay, nobody held anybody down and jabbed the needle in this country, at least, but they did in other countries. There are videos, you can watch them. Some sick stuff. If we don't have bodily autonomy for freedom, if we don't have the freedom to say what goes in our own body and what goes in the bodies of our children, then we don't have freedom, period. And if we have a constitution that to restrain the powers of the government, it's called limited powers for a reason, to restrain not the people, but the government. If everything becomes null and void during an emergency, then all they have to do to get around all of the things is create an emergency. You see? But really what it is we were in 2019 on the precipice of a huge fiscal collapse in this country. As far as monetary, our economy was just about to they've been limping it along by printing money and doing all sorts of shenanigans. Quantitative easing is what they call it. But like 80% of the money that's ever been produced, 70 or 80, something like ridiculous number, has been produced in the last 3 years. Do you feel richer? How much of that money did you get? Guess what? It is the fire sale before the stuff hits the real fan upcoming. You're looking at bank failures and all of these other things. I don't say this stuff to freak you out. I say it so you don't get hit with it, because knowledge is not power, but the knowledge applied is power. Because if I don't tell you, if I know that you're walking towards a cliff and I don't say anything and you fall off that cliff, that's on me. But if I tell you that there's a cliff over there and you continue walking and go swan dive off, that's on you. I did my job. Okay, so I feel a moral imperative to at least point these things out, which is, you don't have to take my word for it. You can look this stuff up. Don't look it up on Google though, because guess what? That's a controlled platform. YouTube, there's a ton of people on there that are speaking truth and stuff, but when you go on the normal trusted sources or whatever, they're all owned by the same people. The pharmaceutical companies are owned by in large part by BlackRock, and 60% of the ad revenue, the revenue from your news, comes from pharmaceutical ads. They pay the bills, and news is dying. Without them, they go out of business. Just like the NIH, and the FDA get half of their funding from the drug companies. They would go out of business without the people that they're trying to regulate are paying their bills. Do you understand how that works? And then when they come up, they mandate where taxpayer money is going to go for research and everything like that, and attribute it to their big business buddies. Then the big business buddies give them a whole bunch of kickbacks because it's legal for the individual scientists. Like Fauci got millions of dollars from Moderna and now works at Moderna for the producing the vaccines that he was supposed to be regulating the safety and efficacy of, and he makes money from the sale of which. You see a conflict of interest maybe there a little bit, you know? So anyway, what I was going to say is they wargamed this whole thing out the last time, 6 weeks before the first case had even happened. Event 201, a global coronavirus, even 6 weeks before. Oh, good timing. And then, so I knew that this was going to be coming because I listen to a lot of smart people smarter than me, more informed than me. And they pointed out the fact that they just wargamed this stuff out again just a few weeks ago. And so they're going to be imposing all of this bullshit yet again. The masks, the lockdowns, the whatevers, probably, I'm sure, a new like vaccine or something like that. If you haven't noticed, I don't know. I belong to these organizations where we advocate for informed consent for people and actually look at the studies from like, why are so many people dying all of a sudden from heart attacks and stuff? It's, guess what? It's because, you know, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. They've done studies recently where it turns out 1 in 35 individuals who have gotten the thing have markers of heart inflammation and heart damage. 1 in 35 in studies. 1 in 35. Our kids are not even susceptible to this stuff. All the bullshit that you heard about, oh, kids are dying from this and that, almost no kids get actually ill from this. Every statistic that you could find, at least some of the ones I've studied, the ones in Minnesota, are kids that were literally also had cancer. Strangely enough, you know, like they were counting people that got into car accidents and stuff with the little death ticker, and the average age originally of people dying from COVID was like the natural age people die from normal causes. It was like 82 originally before the vax came out, and guess what? All-cause mortality's gone up significantly since. More people are dying after the thing came out. If it's supposed to help the situation, why are more people dying now than they were before from non-sickness related deals? It's called all-cause mortality. Like working age people, the amounts of, this is from insurance actuaries, because life insurance, because they have to figure this stuff out so they can price their products accordingly. And they've had in some cases, a 40% uptick in claims from all-cause, non-COVID related, okay? Non-COVID related things, a 40% uptick, okay? It's unprecedented, and it's not being covered. Much like, you know, yeah, you don't see the news, watch the news about like what's happening over in Maui right now, and see how, and then actually look for some of the testimonials. I can point you towards some from people that are on the ground, and you can see that our news organizations are not to be trusted. They are propaganda machines, and this is the same way that things have always been in societies that are on their last legs. You can see that deals have been made to weaken the country. We are ceding our power over to. Yeah, there's some crazy stuff going on in the world, but I say all of that to say this is, do not comply. The more you comply, the more they can push. And if we don't have our freedoms to be able to travel, to be able to say what is to happen with our own bodies, you know, my body, my choice thing. Well, guess what? Ladies, you don't have a penis. And the last I checked, if you are aborting something that has a penis, that might not be your body. It's debatable. I'm just saying. This is literally your body, okay? And I'm not even necessarily anti letting women exercise that do that practice. I'm just keeping it real, you know, like as in how many sets of eyes do you have? How many heads? Well, you're taking out a different head and a different set of eyes that also sometimes has a penis involved. And despite what you saw in the news, women don't have penises. Okay, so and that different DNA. So that's literally not it's in your body, but it's not necessarily your body. Okay, so if you're all horny about the my body, my choice for getting rid of a kid that you don't want, how about your own life? You know, if there is a risk involved with things, and I'm not saying don't do it. You know, I don't even really believe in a real right and wrong. I think we're a bunch of smart monkeys running around on a rock, maybe on a spiritual journey that we all have to take. And I don't even know what the hell's going on. All I know is that it is not fun to live in a society where you don't have freedom. Okay, a lot of us are just taking things so for granted because we've had it so good for so long, but this is not the norm. Okay, the most insidious thing on the planet is a totalitarian society. Read the Gulag Archipelago about, you know, Stalin's Russia, or what's happening in China, or even up in Canada. Things are getting crazy. They're taking the guns and whatnot. You know why they take the guns? Is because they know they're going to do something super fucked up, and they don't want the population to be able to fight back. That's the reason. It's not that there's guns. Countries that like Switzerland, I think, it's got the highest per capita of gun ownership. They don't have mass shootings. It's not guns, it's fucking people. Okay, it's antidepressants and freakiness and government weirdness. Just like they set fires and call it climate change and point at climate change, or knock down skyscrapers and call it terrorism because ultimately they would just want to go to war with somebody. They knew, for instance, Pearl Harbor was going to happen, absolutely, and provoked it and allowed it to happen. Why? To get the American people on board with going to war. Also, the same type of thing got us into war in Vietnam, which is the Gulf of Tonkin incident, where they completely made it up that North Vietnam attacked some ships, and it's well known now, not very well known, but you can look it up, that it was a hoax to get us into war. They do these things, man. Okay, it's like problem, reaction, solution. They have a set solution that they want to happen, so they create a problem and then present the solution that'll bring them to what they wanted to begin with. They go backwards. What do we want? What needs to happen in order for us to get to that point? We want to have war with Saddam Hussein and take over the resources of some Middle Eastern countries. Well, what needs to happen to get the American people on board with doing such a thing as that? Well, if we got attacked on our own soil, and this, and then you get the idea, okay? Because as it turns out, most people are good, but there is a certain percentage of people that are not, that are not, and a lot of them are in control. And most of our elected officials are literally blackmailed and compromised by a million different things. Because the CIA could just go, hey, buddy, Mr. Senator, we want you to vote for this thing, and if you don't, we have access to your computer and access to the courts and everything else, so we can literally just put like child, whatever kind of evidence on your computer or your son's computer, and ruin your life, or else you can have tons of money and play along and be a famous guy or whatever it is. So that's the state of the world a little bit, but it does not take this is the redeeming part of this deal, is that it does not take the majority to change a society. It just takes a tireless minority lighting fires of freedom, of liberty in the hearts of men, because the bulk of the population is going to go on with whatever the thing is, whatever the cool kids are doing. The bulk of the population is going to follow along. So really only 10% or 15% of the population needs to wake the F up and get active out and talking to people about these things and spreading the word so we can turn the tides before we end up in World War III, which incidentally, stand with Ukraine. Oh yeah, do that. Well, guess what? They're going to be taking your 18-year-old son pretty quick over there to go fight and be blown up like the other 400,000 Ukrainians that have already died. You want to support Ukraine? 400,000 dead. They're fighting Russia, okay, on our behalf, but their lives and destroying that. You want to support them? How about peace? If you're supporting war and you're supporting war and you're cheerleading for pharmaceutical companies and these giant international conglomerates, you need to ask yourself, are my thoughts my own? Or if I'm watching the news and I agree with all of the points that they're saying, maybe the points that they're saying, maybe my beliefs are not my own anymore, because it is a hypnotic repetition of talking points and literally flicker rates in your devices that make you more suggestible to basically anything. They've gotten good at psychological manipulation and propaganda, okay? And Obama happened to make it completely legal back in like 2013. I'm sure they've been doing it forever. And in fact, we know because it came out in the 70s that half of the media and CIA operatives actually as the newscasters and what it's called the Church Committee. It's a thing, okay? These things, they're on the internet from trusted sources, and you don't have to take my word for it, because much of this is all being spearheaded by the UN Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 2130. How I'm so sure about what I'm talking about is because they literally put out the information. They put it out straight from the people, the decision makers, and the power players, the World Economic Forum, all of these things, entities. They put it out what they're going to do, and all you need to do is fucking read it. You don't have to take my word for it. It's not anybody's interpretation of some like random thing that they saw on the internet. No, it's the official stuff written by the officials that say what they're gonna fucking do. Okay, so that's all you need to do. Is you don't have to conjecture about it. They've got plans, and they're not very good for humanity. Whatever happened to arguing for world peace? Or what world peace? How about world hunger? Deforestation? When was the last time you've heard anybody talk about that? Or just basically taking care of the environment, anything besides carbon dioxide. Reducing carbon? We're made of carbon. Plants eat carbon. Okay, breathe carbon. It's a necessary part of the life cycle of the planet. It's not a pollutant. Okay, it's funny. I probably excessive amounts, and guess what? It hasn't gotten really any hotter. You can look at it. They can play with the, point to this, that, or the other thing, but on a whole, it hasn't gotten much hotter. And you know what? Climate changes like fishes swim, like dogs bark. Climate changes. We don't know necessarily, but to have the answer be cut off the food supply for third world people and let their children starve to death and shut down farms and everything like that, which is happening all over the world and soon to be happening here too. And all of these, I could go on for a while, but I'm not going to. What you don't know can hurt you. When it comes to medications, when it comes to foods, we need to be wise, and we need to be non-compliant and happy warriors. Man is always in some existential threat of some kind. This is nothing new. They've got some awesome new tools, to be able to manage society and make it real manageable for them control-wise, but we're always under some existential threat as people. This is nothing new. We can overcome. Many people have woken up during and become aware of things more and more over the course of the last few years. But we've got some rocky road, not the ice cream, ahead of us. Rocky, some interesting times ahead, and I'm excited about it. Okay, because we all have our parts to play. Be a hero in this world. Be a hero in your own life. Have no fear. Everything is going to work out exactly as it's supposed to. We will become stronger and better on the other side, but we need to do something about it. You know what I mean? Get active, get out there, get informed, and yeah. Anyway, I love you guys. Have a beautiful day.